Hi, and welcome to the video. Today, I kind of felt like doing something a bit different. I get asked a lot about how I make my art, and I thought it might be fun if I did a tutorial. So, since I'm a nerd, I'll be showing you how to draw Keith Sensen from the Keeper Velocity series, because that's kind of the only thing I do on this channel is just draw the Keeper characters. So let's get right into that. I'm going to start with a canvas that is the same size as my screen, but you can do any size, it doesn't really matter. Then I'm turning the canvas so that it's in portrait form, because this is going to be a portrait of Keith. And I'm drawing a circle for the base of Keith's head, sort of towards the top of the canvas. After that, I'm going to add a line down the middle as a guideline for his face, adding in the sides of his head like so, and then his jawline, flattening out the chin a little so it's less pointed, then drawing in a guideline for his eyes, which should be slightly below the middle of the head like this. Okay, now I'm drawing his neck, then some fancy parallelograms, wow that was a big word, and one with the wider side facing up for his shoulders and the other facing the exact opposite way, kind of like a mirror. So I know I drew his legs, but I actually wound up zooming in a bit in a second, so you can ignore that. Anywho, here I'm drawing his arms, and zooming in a bit, like so that the corners of his arms touch the corners of the canvas. Alrighty-o, time for Lord Hunky Hair's hair. I'm going to start off with a curve facing up and two little tufts in the corner, I don't know how to explain that, but that. And then another curve down, and then some spikes like so. They kind of look like waves almost. And then adding in his ears really quickly, like that. Oh my goodness, that ear is way too high, I just realized that. I think I fix that later, or I better at least. Okay, now the little side thingies, they kind of look like the ends of ribbons, or that's how I think of it at least. Just going to clean that up really quickly. Now moving on to the front part of his hair. This is going to kind of spike down and then to the side. And I like to do like two big fluffs, I don't know, and then some smaller ones, and then around the ears and around where the head meets the neck. Alright, now for his collar, the collar of his shirt, or I guess jerkin. I have no idea if I'm saying that right, but we'll just go with that. And they should kind of look like this. I don't really know how to explain it, so I'm just going to let you look at my drawing and do it the best you can. And then we're going to add a V right to connect the two sides of the collar, like this, and a line down the middle just to show that this is a button-up shirt, and then the buttons or clasps or whatever you want to call it, and his sleeves, which are folded up, and they should look something like this. Yay! Time for his face. I'm going to add a little detail to his ears, and then of course his smirk, because there's no Keith without his smirk. So, and now his eyes, which are just going to be like two arcs or curves going up from that middle line, and then his nose, which I just start off with by drawing like a cat nose, which is just a triangle, like so. Just editing a few things, adding in his eyebrows. One is kind of towards, like facing down, and then the other one is higher up, because smirking. And then just adding like a little line right in front of the eyebrows like that, just to show a little more expression. Then his pupil or iris, because that'd be creepy if it was just like a Herobrine Keith, you know, Herobrine from Minecraft. Anyways, just coloring those in to make them more defined and editing some more. Okay, now I'm going to clean up my base sketch a little bit, like erasing lines that shouldn't be there. And then I'm about to flip my canvas, which means it turns it kind of like the opposite way, literally flips it. And this actually really helps me and everybody who does this see any details that need to be fixed, like his eyes are crooked and then one side of his face is skinnier than the other, and then his ear is way too high, and just fixing anything that needs to be fixed. It helps you see things from a different perspective, which is really helpful, and I definitely recommend doing this. This is like one of the most important things you can do during digital art. So remember to do this. Make a mental note. Feel free to pause here and fix up a few things, like doing touch-ups like I'm about to do here. I did speed this up, so feel free to pause and do that. And I'm going to flip my canvas again back to the way I had it before. Everything looks pretty good. Now I'm going to turn down the opacity on this layer. Doesn't matter how low, just lower than it is right now. Pausing really quick, I forgot to say, make sure you add a layer so that you're not drawing on your base sketch layer. Then I'm going to take an outline brush. This is my modified light pen. I modified it myself. But you can use any outline pen. Usually you wouldn't use a texture brush. So something like Syrup or an ink pen like that. Those work well for outlines. Now all I have to do is outline everything, trace everything in my base sketch that I want to keep. So that's why I take so long on my base sketch. That way I don't really have to worry about being perfect with my outline because I already have everything mapped out for me. Before I tell you to pause and finish up your outline, I just want to let you know that when you draw your nose, or not your nose, Keith's nose, don't draw a triangle. Draw it something like this, like 2 dots and a little line in between, I guess, I don't know. And then after you do that, feel free to pause this video and finish up your outline and then unpause when you're ready. Alrighty, time skip, flipping the canvas. You probably don't want to watch 4 minutes of me doing an outline, so that's why I did the time skip. Flipping the canvas, everything looks pretty good. Flipping it back to normal. And going to layers, making sure all my layers are good, which is only 2 layers, so, you know. Almost time's the color, but first I have to set my outline layer to reference so none of the colors can escape. Then I'm going to add a layer in between those. And I'm going to find my Keeper Velocities color palette because that's how much of a nerd I am. I'll put the color palette up really quick and feel free to take a screenshot if you want and then color match using the eyedropper tool on whatever app you're using. So here's the skin tone. I'm just adding that in. Each of the different parts should be on a different layer. So here's a new layer for his hair, which is going to be a light blonde like this. And then his eyebrows, which are going to be a darker blonde. His jerkin is a burgundy, but you can change that color, of course. I'm just choosing burgundy because I think that was what he was wearing on the second book cover. And then his sleeves are going to be a darker and lighter gray. Oh, and each of these separate things should be on separate layers. So the skin tone, the hair, and the hair should be on separate layers. Same with the jerkin, the red part, and the sleeves and buttons. Those should be on separate layers too, like you can see here. And then for his eyes, I'm just going to fill in the white part like this, just by coloring. Since the lines aren't connected, I can't just drag and drop. Okay, your layer should look something like this, with everything on separate layers, like I said before. And now we're going to add another one. And this is going to be for the irises, which of course are going to be sky or ice blue, whichever color name you prefer. Now I'm going to drag my base sketch above all my other layers so that I can see where Keith's irises are going to be. And then I'm just going to draw them in. I don't really know any other way to explain it. So just like so. To turn off my base sketch, edit a few things, and flip my canvas again to make sure everything looks good and make sure Keith isn't cross-eyed or anything. Alrighty, open up your layers and go down to the skin tone layer. Add a layer above that and set it to clipping mask. Then add a layer in between that, so then there's 2 clipping masks. Now I'm going to color in with black on his nose and cheeks and a little bit on his ears as well. And this is kind of going to give him a little more color so that he's not flat. And then I'm going to blur this with the Gaussian blur or whatever it's called, and set the layer to overlay. This will kind of saturate the color a little bit more and make it look like he's blushing, I guess? Or, yeah. Maybe just talk to Sophie or something. I don't know. And now I'm going to add a little bit of shading on his nose so that he doesn't look like Voldemort, because that would be bad. Then I'm going to set that layer to soft light, which is just like a less saturated version of overlay. After I do that and adjust the opacity a bit, I'm just going to go around on the same layer as the nose shading and add in the rest of the shading on the face. So around the ears and under the hair, those little the little thingies next to his eyebrows, I don't know, and his neck. Alrighty, once you're done with that, we're going to group these layers by side swiping them and then clicking the group button, and move on to the hair, which you're just going to add a clipping mask, then another clipping mask too, and start shading with black, just like you would, just like I did with the face, just obviously on the hair. Then we're going to set the layer to overlay, and it should look like this. And now we're going to take white on any layer and kind of color in the top of his hair, like right here where the light would be hitting it. Use Gaussian blur, or however you say it, and set that to add, and then turn down the opacity a little bit. This will kind of make it look like the light is hitting it. Now we're going to group these layers just like we did with the skin tone, and continue to shade the jerkin, sleeves, and buttons. Remember to set all the layers that are using black for shading to overlay. That way it's like a darker, more saturated color of the base color, I guess. And then also when you're doing the highlights, use a mix of soft light and add. Also remember to keep using a bunch of different layers, Gaussian blur, and always set the shaded layers onto clipping mask so that they're connected to the part of the drawing you're shading. Time for the eyes. We're going to start by adding a clipping mask to the whites of the eyes and shading about half of that with black, and then just turning down the opacity. Now for the irises, which I also have a lot of people asking questions about. So now I'll show you one of the ways that I like to draw them. I start by drawing black like this and setting the layer to overlay or soft light. For this one I'll keep it at soft light. And then adding another layer and doing the same thing around the sides of the eyes like this, and setting that to soft light. Then another one and adding kind of polka dots, a line of dots that get bigger and smaller as they go up, and then setting that to overlay. Next I'm going to set my color to white and make two bigger spots right here on the bottom of the eyes like this. Set that to soft light. Then I'm going to add another layer, and I'm going to do the same kind of polka dot thing on the opposite side of the iris, but this time with white. And I'm going to set that to add, and this will kind of make the color pop a little bit more, like so. Now grouping all the layers like I did with the other sections of the drawing, and then I'm going to duplicate this group of layers and flatten it. Then I'm going to select and color fill so that it's black. Then Gaussian blur it. Hi, editing Shasha. I forgot to say, make sure you drag and drop the thing that we just made right now into the same group as the shading for the whites of the eyes. It should look something like this. Now everything looks good. Oh, I'm also going to add a little bit more shading to the top of the eyes, and I'm just going to blur this a bit and then set it to overlay. I also did duplicate that layer just to make the darker blue pop out a bit more. Okay, we're almost done. Now I'm just going to select all of the groups and the outline and base sketch and group that into one big giant group. Then I'm going to set the background color to the same icy sky blue as his eyes. Add in my signature, and you can of course add in your signature since this is your art too. And now we are done. Keith has been completed. Oh, look at him. It's Keith Stenson from Keeper of the Lost Cities. Thank you so much for watching. I really enjoyed making this. I always enjoy drawing Keeper characters, especially Keith. So I hope you learned something, and I hope you enjoyed as well. Thank you again for watching, and I'll see you next time. Bye!